Today is a very special day in my writing career. Pretty much very early on into my writing, I gave up on ever finishing a project. I tried again and again, and it just never happened. Whenever I started Prophecy Foretold, I expected pretty much the exact same an unfinished project, given up on about halfway through. Not even halfway, 1,000 words. 1 year ago today, those expectations changed. I got to write, for the first time ever, the end on one of my projects, on one of my books. I still remember the exact moment I did it. It was almost Thanksgiving Day, and we were at my mom's boyfriend's family's. We were sitting in their TV room because I don't know why, but they had they had a living room and a TV room. TV room was tiny and uncomfortable, but they preferred to sit there. Anyway, that's where I was. I was sitting in a very uncomfortable chair, and I just wrote pretty much all day during that trip because I had nothing else to do other than write. And I remember those days slowly leading up to that. I knew I was getting very, very close to the end. I was writing the final battle, those final scenes. And then I wrote the end. And I got to show it to my friends. They got to read it. And it was over. I had always expected that to be some big moment. This grand, great feeling. But it left me with this weird emptiness. I had dedicated, at this point I think it was 7, 8 months to this project, and it was over. I had nothing left, it felt like. I remember sitting there in this weird emptiness, knowing I could no longer write that book. It was done. I mean, sure, there's editing, stuff like that, but it was over. At the time, publishing wasn't really something I had considered. It just never occurred to me. My brain never realized, hey, we could do that. It wasn't until I was talking with my dad about the book. We were just chatting. We had talked about it on one of my previous visits. And he wanted to know how it was going. And at that point, I mean, it's Christmas time then, I had finished it, and I was working on writing book 2. That was kind of when it hit me that I could publish, because my dad brought it up. He said, well, do you want to publish? And he works a lot in the movie industry, so he helped me in terms of movie stuff, like thinking of things. This is what I need to do. This is what I need to do. I need to think about this and this and this. And for the first time ever, publishing became an option, an idea. One of the things that always hits me whenever I read book 2 is that my main character is mentioned to have had a plan in working in robotics. Because that's what I wanted to do at the time that I was writing it. And this is in the middle of book 2. It had never occurred to me that writing was an actual career I could follow, something I could do. It was around that time, I realized this is something I could do, so I started pursuing it. I remember getting home that night, I believe. I sat in my little reading nook place, and I researched anything and everything on publishing. Publishing with a publisher, publishing, self-publishing, the pros, the cons, everything. Through my time doing that, I eventually settled on self-publishing with Amazon. From there, I researched everything I'd have to do to publish with Amazon. And I kept researching it. Then I started editing the book. That was really, really boring, gonna be honest. I hated the second drafts and the third drafts and all of that. The fun part was getting to do the stylistic kind of stuff, I enjoyed editing the page things, figuring out how to make page numbers. It was difficult. I'm probably going to end up doing a tutorial whenever I'm working on book 2, because, believe me, it is hard with Google Docs. They are not at all designed for publishing books. Part of my plan for publishing was YouTube. I needed to promote my book somehow. So, my cousin had recently gotten a YouTube account for her crocheting. And I mean, if my cousins are allowed to do it, it's a lot easier to convince my mom to let us do something. YouTube had never been an option until this point. An uncrossable dream. The word's gone. Unachievable dream. But I brought it up to my mom. She said yes, and I started making videos. I have a different video planned where I go over my journey with YouTube, so I'm not going to go over that right now. But as I continued to work on my book, I finished editing, got everything to a point where I was happy with it. I uploaded it to Amazon, had a friend help me get a profile picture, about the author picture, did all that stuff, and then I ordered the book, or so we thought. Something went wrong while we were ordering the book, and it never got ordered. I just figured it was taking a long time. I mean, it's a big book, and they're printing it on demand. So I figured, yeah, it'll take a while. I think it was almost 4 months later, that I finally was like, okay, this is taking too long. I decided to bring it up to my mom, and we reordered the books, and it took less than a week to get to us that time, because they already had the copies printed. In fact, it actually got to us a day early. I remember I was really bored, just messing around the house. I had cleaned everything, I had done all my schoolwork, and I was just bored. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if my book came in today so I could do something with it? I wouldn't be bored. And then a package arrives, and I go outside and I grab the package, and I'm like, wow, this is heavy. Then I put it down on the table, and I open it up, and there's a book. The joy I felt whenever I realized that was my book. You guys have a video of it, and that's after about, I think, 15 minutes of me freaking out to like the point I couldn't even speak. I was just that happy. I spammed all my friends. Most of them were at school whenever it happened, but all the other homeschoolers were getting spammed like, guys, I've got my book. I have it. I remember one of my other homeschooling friends, they called me, and I was just over and over, girl, I have my book, I have it, it is here, I have my book. We were on call, I think, 30 minutes as I prepared for my live stream. And then I live streamed myself as I talked about the book, and I fixed the pages so that they wouldn't like crease the spine and whatever, because they're my books. I'm going to take extra special care of them. From there, because I had 2 copies of the book, my mom took one of them to work with her to edit, and the other one I edited through fully, and then I gave it to my older sister to begin editing. It didn't take long for me to kind of have that moment of, wow, these 2 are slow readers. And, it's not their fault. They've got school and work, and they don't have much free time to read. But even then, they didn't read much, and they were going really, really slow. And at the same time, I was working on book 3. And in book 3, I go into the backstory of certain characters a lot more. It was backstory that I hadn't had developed back in book 1. Because of all these different things adding together to slow down the process of publishing book 1, I decided to take a break from working on that and focus on book 3. I told myself, I'm not going to go back to this until book 3 is done, because by that point, my mom and my sister should be done editing book 1. I'm almost done with book 3, neither of them are, but we don't need to talk about that. I had felt kind of bad that I had been talking up about publishing book 1 for a while, and it wasn't going to happen anytime soon after I decided that. So I decided to start publishing book 1 chapter a month on Wattpad, so that you guys would still be getting some sort of writing content from me other than YouTube. At this point, I don't really know where I'm going with this book. Soon, I'm going to finish book 3, and that means going back to working on book 1. That means, I've got a lot to rewrite. I know that for certain. I've got my mom and my sister still need to finish editing, because they insist on finishing before I am actually publishing it. But yeah, 1 year ago today, I finished writing the first draft of Prophecy Foretold. And I guess from here, I'm not sure where I'm going with it. It'll be published at some point, Can't tell you when. Just soon, hopefully. Very indecisive word, but soon. I'm not sure if my sister and my mom will ever actually finish reading it and editing it. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. I'm not sure how many of you guys will actually end up liking it. Some of you will, some of you won't. Eventually, I'll start publishing the rest of the series. I'll start writing book 4 at some point. But yeah, I guess this is the end of the video. I guess we'll see where it takes us.